On the podcast, I break down the One News poll. Despite the capitulation by the Greens and Te Pati Māori, this next MP election looms as a really tight one. The right can't count their chickens, as unelectable as the left are right now. This poll is one massive warning to National. They will have to fight really hard for this. And Bupa, the aged care providers, get back to us to put their side of the story, but so do a pile of anti-Bupa workers and their families. Oh dear, we've opened up a can of whoop-ass, haven't we? Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan, Garner.
Okay, welcome to the program. Good to have you along. You're with the Editor-in-Chief. Good evening, everybody. I'm Duncan, Garner. Please subscribe. Really helps us. We really appreciate it. Tonight, Christopher Luxon bends the needle a little bit in his favour in the polls, the state of the polls, and why the right can't rest easy, despite the Greens' horror run and Te Pati Māori's complete arrogance and refusal to play by Parliament's rules. And Bupa responds, but so do the little people, who are doubling down on their complaints of poor care and not enough staff and dangerous practices at the aged care provider. It's a doozy. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
So this latest One News political poll shows how close the two blocks are, and it shows how polarising New Zealand politics is right now. People largely sit firmly in their camps, and the level of vitriol fired at their so-called political enemies has never been so angry, never been so acute, and voters are well aware that the opposing parties are now very different and offer very different prescriptions for New Zealand in the years ahead. The good news for National voters is they've turned around last month's poll where Labour would have taken office, and it's now 64 seats to the National centre-right bloc and 58 to Labour. But it only takes an ever so slight swing to change the game, and no one can count their chickens right now. And this is National's worry. Despite holding the platform and the power of government and the levers of government, and after a successful trip to India for Luxon, the right bloc is not that much further ahead of Labour, the Greens and Te Pati Māori. 64 to 58, it's close. And with the economic recovery now at risk due to all these tariffs, all of a sudden Luxon's claims that National is turning the economy around might no longer be credible. Put it this way, a 3-seat swing would make it all neck and neck. So despite having their worst weeks on record, both the Greens and Te Pati Māori see their votes largely holding up. The Greens are steady on 10, and I don't know how they've come away unscathed. And I suggest you won't see the hit to them until the next poll, and Te Pati Māori's on 3, proving there are at least 3% of voters who remain deluded, thinking this party is actually going to do something for them. But despite having their worst 10 days on record, both parties see their vote largely hold up, which I find remarkable and optimistic at best, but it shows that people have become tribal, they're in their corners and they're firmly staying there ahead of next year's election. National's problem is Luxon's personal numbers. It makes for pretty average reading. For someone who is close to halfway through the first term, and with signs that the economy is slowly getting better, or was, you'd expect him to be doing much better, but he simply failed to connect with ordinary Kiwis. Sure, he's up in this poll. And what happens to his numbers if he can't manage to get through this whole Trump tariff nonsense? Would voters see the other side as better? I doubt it. But stranger things have happened. Look at Chloe Swarbrick's defence of the indefensible. And how come the left is still so close to the right bloc? I put it down to Luxon's inability to set the polls on fire. I mean, how can they be so close after such an abysmal showing? The poll asked 1,000 eligible voters whether they approved or disapproved of the way Luxon was handling the top job. The proportion who approved was 40%, while 47% disapproved. 13% didn't even know. The poll also asked if people approved or disapproved of the way Chris Hipkins was handling the job as leader of the Labour Party. For Hipkins, 49% approved, 33% disapproved, 18% didn't know, or wouldn't say. Can Luxon do better in the polls and win people over? I'm not sure he can. Maybe if the left keep putting their foot in it, in their own mouth, he can inch up a bit, but he needs to convince new voters, not ones already voting on the right. And for the left, as long as Luxon is there, they'll feel like they've got a bit of a chance. Replace him with anyone more competent and Labour's toast. But I think they want him there and like him there. The irony in the polls, and every other poll going, is how poorly Luxon is perceived by the voting public. He hasn't warmed to people. People feel he's out of touch with the real world issues, and it's clear that he loves the overseas stuff ahead of the domestic drag. But voters largely ignore what happens overseas, so they don't really care. Now the challenge gets bigger for Luxon as the economy might take another dip post this whole Trump business with the tariffs. And without economic good news, he can only rely on one thing. He'll need to exploit the mess on the left and scare people with the thought of them returning to power. Now, Winston has plenty of mongrel, so does Seymour, but Luxon's going to have to find some, I reckon. Find some mongrel and drive it home. Drive home the disasters, the instability of and the volatile nature of the left-wing parties. What would they look like in government? Luxon needs to learn to fight this and maybe be dirty about it. Because he has so much material to work with regarding the left, he should start soon because he can't count on the economy. He needs some rat cunning, I reckon, some street mongrel. He needs to speak the people's language. He needs to drive a wedge and a knife through the left and tell New Zealanders what they did when they were in office and what they want to do to them now. Luxon's National's top dog, but he's also potentially their obvious weak point. It's a strange thing with the man that got you there, maybe the man that is the reason why you won't get there next time. Luxon needs to harden his resolve and rip into this next 18 months, because the thought of the other guys running the show so soon after getting booted out would amount to a mass exodus to Australia, I reckon. I mean, who would stay here?
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, right. The level of care at aged care provider Bupa was all on our last podcast. We read a number of complaints from ex-staff members, current staff members, mums and dads and wives, what was happening to their mums and dads and husbands and wives in Bupa Care and the dementia unit. Well, Bupa has got back to me. They won't go on camera. They've refused to go on camera and said that won't be happening. But they've put out a statement. Well, they put out one last night and then they rescinded that this morning. They gave me another one because they saw what we did. It says, our people at every one of our 40 sites do an amazing job every day, providing quality care and quality of life to thousands of elderly New Zealanders, is what they say. Care is at the heart of everything we do. It's why we are here, and it's why we are saddened and take seriously any allegations of not meeting our residents' expectations or providing a substandard level of care. Alongside Te Whatu Ora audits and Te Whatu Ora's minimum care ratios, Bupa has a quality care team who carry out monthly audits at each care home to ensure the quality of residential care. At Bupa, we have high standards that we expect our people to meet. We don't always get it right, and we own it and make amends when we don't. But the overwhelming majority of the time we do, and our customer satisfaction surveys and resident and family member feedback backs this up. We encourage our people and our residents to raise issues when they happen, and we have incredibly robust processes for dealing with complaints and move quickly to address them. It's crucial that we hear from our residents or families if they have any concerns or worries about care being provided at Bupa, and encourage them to contact us at feedback@bupa.co.nz. We were disappointed and surprised by inaccuracies and allegations made during the interview last night. However, we cannot discuss individual details or current or former employees. Yeah, so that's handy, isn't it? Say it was inaccurate and then walk away. Why don't you come and address it here with me, Bupa? You're welcome any stage to come on here. You're welcome at any time to come on here. There's the issue of privacy, I think, is a red herring and doesn't come into it. Anyway, so we asked them on and they've said no, but they have given us that statement, which I don't actually think addresses some of the concerns that we saw last night. Anyway, our previous podcast saw a huge number of fresh complaints pile in. A whole new heap of them. This one said, "Hi Duncan, I watched your podcast with past staff of Foxbridge. My mother was a resident of Foxbridge going on for 5 years this year. She passed on the 20th of January this year in the dementia unit. These are the issues, Duncan. 1, open access kitchen. Clients and residents can access everything. Half locks on cutlery drawers where they've been broken. Food's easy accessible. Clients have fallen off the kitchen bench after standing on it, breaking bones. Limited staff, can't watch them. Supervisor, they're just not there. Number 2, medication trolley. Medication not being given properly, as you can see in the email that I've sent you. Open access to drug trolley, as you can see, my mum being the one with her fingers in it. Number 3, residents not having an allocated side, so males and females in the same rooms next to each other. At night time in dementia, residents wander around. Number 4, my mother loved the sun. She was left outside asleep in the sun for hours. Had family members of other residents contact me. Your mum's outside, they said. She's burnt. This happened for years. Limited staff made it hard to have someone go out and see who was there and where they were. Overall, 5 managers. The current one, Teresa, has no healthcare background or knowledge, and she's cold-hearted. I was told to be silent and behave. Given warnings about staff feeling afraid of me, they felt threatened by me. I was given a list of instructions on where I was to go and raise the issues and who I could talk to. Staff are told to be friendly but not friends. The rest of them, I could give you 5 years of crap. Overall, I wouldn't put my worst pet in there with management the way it is. Whew, it's pretty telling, isn't it? Another new complainant wrote to me saying, "Hi Duncan, thank you for exposing this evil Bupa. This aged care needs to be investigated and then shut down. Why should New Zealand government allow the persecution to elderly people and Bupa staff happening in front of this country? What is wrong with this government, especially Ministry of Health? Why do you let this happen without any consequences to this evil management of Bupa? Why does not the government investigate this Bupa and put the management into the prison as they told lies upon lies, and compensate the staff who lost their jobs and return the money of the old people who have been overcharged and over the top?" Well, that's pretty dramatic. Thank you, Duncan and team. God bless you. I look forward to witnessing this evil Bupa shut down or close down in New Zealand and hold management accountable, put it into court, as they breach H&S and deceiving old people and families and abusing old people and their staff. And this next one's a shocker. Johanna writes, I was a level 2 caregiver in a dementia unit in Palmerston North for 9 months. There were 14 residents in the secure facility. By law, there should be 2 caregivers for 14 residents. Imagine doing this every day. However, as the dementia unit was not a 2-assist unit, whenever someone didn't turn up to work or rang up sick, the dementia unit had to be run by one person. I was that person 3 days a week. My shift started at 7 a.m. I was expected to wake them all up, wash them, change their pads, dress them, make their beds, take soiled clothing to the laundry room, seat them in the dining room, make their breakfast, porridge, toast, tea, cereal. 4 needed to be hand-fed. I had to liaise with the nurse handling out the morning medicines. Then I had to clean up the dining room, put all the dishes on a trolley, which would then go to the main kitchen for cleaning. By that time was all done, I was liaising with visitors and updating resident records on the computer. Then I had to give them all morning tea and lunch and again stack up all the dishes on the trolley, which was taken to the main dining room for cleaning. While all this was going on, I had to appease those that were upset, console those that were crying, clean up spills, tidy their rooms, put their clothes into industrial washing machines and then dryers. Then there was afternoon tea. My shift finished at 3:30, but the next caregiver's always 10 minutes late. I was shattered at the end of my shift and no thank you from management. The home I worked at was Aroha, owned by Ultimate Care. What a joke. That's in Palmerston North. Keep up the good work, Duncan, because this needs to get sorted. I have told all my friends that if a doctor ever tells me I have early onset dementia, I'll take a couple of bottles of sleeping tablets and 2 bottles of really expensive wine and say goodbye. Seriously, there's no way I'm going into a home. And Nick, who said to me, hi Duncan, I worked for Bupa in Christchurch for 3 years as a senior registered nurse. I left disillusioned with their approach to caring for our elderly. Management always cutting staff. There was a bullying culture in all layers of management. Staff on working visas were manipulated and threatened into shift changes and were too scared to speak up for fear of losing their job. I was bullied for speaking out and then I left. And this one as well. Hi Duncan, I wanted to write to you. Sadly, we've been experiencing similar with my dad's care, but in another of these large rest homes. This is Ryman this time, so we're not just focusing on Bupa. This is just sort of spread the net on Ryman. We ended up securing a room at a village, not Ryman, that we weren't so sure on, but had heard a good review, so thought it would be okay. Sadly, it ended up being a horrific and stressful experience for my dad and family. During the very short period he was there, a number of staff left. There were residents in the same area as my dad who should have been in hospital, level dementia care due to full-blown dementia. They would be waking residents up through the night with yelling, wandering and trying to get into other rooms. Not blaming them, but they just weren't cared for properly, and it was then affecting all the residents. No staff had capacity for activities and the care required for the patients. Some residents weren't showered for a few days. A few weeks ago, we went to visit him after he had been in hospital. We found him in his room alone in bed, curtains closed and in a lot of pain. We had to arrange for pain medication and to clean up a spill in his room. He also said no one had been in to shower him. It was sad to see him in a poor state and just left to himself. When we visited, we could only see one staff member on the floor who was reading the paper to a few residents. No one else in sight. We shouldn't be paying $9,000 a month and then still be having to make sure that he's cared for properly. Otherwise, what the hell is our money going towards? Please keep exposing this and putting the pressure on so it's heard. It needs a light shed on it and action to come from it. Yeah, it's pretty depressing, isn't it? Isaac coming in from Christchurch. Yeah, your nana's in a Bupa care village, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
My grandma.
She gets all right. She gets all right
she's
care.
in Bupa Island, I think it's just called, and had some interesting experience. I think for the most part, it's been okay.
Yeah.
But there was one time I was talking to you about this yesterday, where it kind of seems like the management is a little bit all over the place. It kind of seems like I feel like their turnaround is real quick, and so it doesn't sound like they really have anybody that's really ingrained into the culture of that place. And so they asked if my grandmother, they asked her husband, my granddad, and my parents whether or not they could move her to a different room, so that they could, because there was a new couple coming in and they couldn't be in the same room, but they wanted to be next to each other, and that was the only place where that could happen apparently. And so they asked if they could move my grandma, but it was into a room that was significantly worse. There was a big issue with like the temperature of the room, and apparently it was just like she would have just been sitting in the sun all day, and it would have been quite unhealthy for her to be in that new room. And so ultimately my parents and my granddad decided to say no to that room change because they were given the choice. And then when they said no to management freaked out and said, "Oh, it's too late. We've already put in the paperwork. She needs to move." And so even though they said, it's your choice.
Yes.
They'd obviously made that choice for them, and then it became a massive issue getting that fixed. And so, in the end, it was okay. Like, my grandma's still in her same room, and that was okay. But I remember that putting a lot of stress on only like my granddad, who has his own things going on in his own right. He's just not in the care home, and then obviously my parents as well. So that was that's just off the top of my head. That was a thing that I've dealt with, and it sounds like there is plenty more and plenty worse things happening in a lot of those places.
I agree, and I don't think the Bupa statement, even while it addresses a few things, it doesn't address anything particular, because why would they want to address that? You know, and look, aged care facilities are challenging. This is going to happen, and it's as we learned tonight, it's not just Bupa; it's in other places too. So, yeah, all right.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Let us to the editor. I'll start with this one. Wise words from Gavin. Now, Gavin, we had on the other night. Gavin from the New Zealand Food Network. They hand out food to 500,000 New Zealanders every day. Heard a saying from an older guys a few years back, really resonated previously. Businesses used to charge what something is worth, a fair price. Nowadays, they charge what they can get. Yeah. That's probably true. In the supermarkets, they charge through the nose. And they're unashamedly, going for the top price.
And even what you discussed in a previous episode, not only are they charging what they can get, they're also on top of the product, they're also charging before that product's even on the shelves by making companies pay rent for them.
Yeah, I know. Rental space. So they pay them the lowest possible dime. They then charge them to be there, and then they charge through the nose for that product, which they paid bugger all for. What else we got there? You go with that one. You go, Isaac.
Yeah, we got Glenda Boyd 8091 said, such a good conversation to have, Duncan. Well done to interview Gavin Finlay, who has fabulous advice in creating the awareness of just how challenging the times are to survive.
Yeah, true. Another one here. I was in New Zealand last week for the first time since 2018. Fuck me, prices are nuts. I live in Norway, and prices in New Zealand are higher than Norway for groceries and clothing. I don't know how Kiwis with significantly lower incomes than Norwegians survive. That says it all, doesn't it? Eh? Someone drops the F-bomb when it comes to groceries.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
That is us. Just to reconfirm, we did ask Bupa to come on in tonight's episode. They've politely declined, but have sent us that statement that was that we read out earlier. That's us. Thanks for your feedback and your support. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok, Instagram. Flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. We'd love to hear from you. To my team, Isaac, thank you, boss. Lockie, thank you, mate. We'll do it again tomorrow. And remember, life's in a dress rehearsal. No curtain raiser. You're in it. You're in it. This is all we've got. We live in one of the best places on earth, so get out and enjoy it and have a great rest of the day. Take care, New Zealand. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.